Most women over 40 don't realize bone density starts changing in perimenopause. Did you? So many women that I work with think bone density becomes a concern later in life. It's like it's a 65 and up issue. And because of that, it may not be on your radar in perimenopause. And what you may not realize is that bone density doesn't suddenly just change later. It's gradually changing as your hormones change. And the tricky part is you don't feel it happening. There are no obvious warning signs, no early stages, there's no symptoms. So it really can go unnoticed until you have that bone scan that shows the changes years later. So in this video, I want to walk through when your bone density actually starts to change, why most women don't find out until later, what causes those changes in the body, and what matters if you want to support your bone health earlier in your life. So welcome. I'm Dr. Erin Foley. I'm a functional medicine practitioner, chiropractor, board certified health coach, and I help women stop the hormone guessing game. And bone health is a big part of your hormones and your health. So let's dive in. So let's talk about when bone density starts to change. So you reach your peak bone mass as a woman in your early 20s or late 30s, or early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. And after that, your bone density slowly begins to decline. And on average, we lose about 0.5% a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, right? For a long time, it's not noticeable. But during menopause, that rate can double or triple. And in the first 5 to 7 years after menopause, women can lose up to 20% of their bone density. So that is a major change in a relatively short period of time. So here's why most women don't see it coming. The challenge is that bone loss doesn't feel like anything. There's no symptoms that points directly to it. Most women only find out when they get their first bone density scan, and many women don't get their first scan until age 65, unless there are risk factors. So these risk factors to be able to get a bone scan earlier could be early menopause or having a hysterectomy, which is surgical menopause, low estrogen over a long period of time, or maybe you have a family history of osteoporosis and hip fractures, low body weight or very low muscle mass, chronic inflammatory or autoimmune conditions, which can affect your gut health, which can affect your bone density. And also something like long-term steroid use or medications, and smoking or higher alcohol intake. So if you are younger and you don't have these risk factors, you may not get a bone density scan until later, but you're still having bone changes in perimenopause that can go unnoticed. So when you get your first bone scan, you may be told that you have osteopenia or osteoporosis. Now, these are both terms that are used for low bone density. Osteopenia is bone density that is below normal but not yet at osteoporosis. Osteopenia is often 10 to 25% loss of bone from your peak bone mass. Now, osteoporosis is the more advanced stage of bone loss, and it's usually about 25% or more loss of bone. And this comes with a much higher risk of fracture, and this is scary. The fractures are typically the most common areas of fracture are going to be your hip, your wrist, and your spine. So if you're diagnosed with osteopenia, it's an early warning stage, and it can and will advance to osteoporosis, which is much more bone loss and fragile bones. So by the time you're scanned, this is not a new problem. It's been developing for years. And because of the severity of bone loss, this is why doctors often turn quickly to medications, but a large majority of women won't take these medications because of the side effects, which are pretty harsh. So what we really need to look at is what is the root cause of all of this, and what can you do? Because here's the thing, bone health is not just about calcium or popping a bunch of calcium pills. It reflects what's been happening in your body over time, and there's a few things that can cause this. So, one of the biggest underlying factors of bone loss is inflammation in your body. And inflammation isn't, again, something you can always feel. Think of a rusting car. It's like you're oxidizing, you're rusting from the inside out, but you may not feel it. And low-grade inflammation can build over time. So this can come from other hormones like your insulin hormone, blood sugar swings, prediabetes, diabetes, metabolic issues, chronic stress, cortisol issues, eating things that are inflammatory like ultra-processed foods, soda, high sugar. And these things push your body towards more breakdown of bone instead of repairing and building of the bone. So hormones will play a major role here. And when you're going through perimenopause and into menopause, your estrogen is declining. This directly affects your bone density. Okay? If your cortisol is high, it can cortisol is your stress hormone, and it can affect your bones. Cortisol can be high, cortisol can be low. Blood sugar and insulin. Insulin is your blood sugar hormone, and insulin, if that is high from high blood sugar, prediabetes, diabetes, it can drive and push for higher levels of inflammation because that's what it creates. Another thing that happens is protein is really critical. Without enough protein, the body cannot maintain muscle. Muscle is one of the strongest protective signals for bone density. So your muscle mass is really important. Okay, so what about supplements? What about calcium? Calcium is important, but this is where supplements can get oversimplified because calcium does not work alone. It's not just about popping a bunch of calcium pills. It's about what's the quality, what kind of calcium. Is it even absorbable in your gut and your cells? When you take calcium, you also need vitamin D to absorb the calcium. You need K2 to absorb the vitamin D, and you also need magnesium for all of this. You need a mineral balance. Without that mineral balance, the calcium does not automatically mean stronger bones. It can actually hamper. It's about getting absorbed in your body and then what your body does with it. So let's talk about your daily habits that matter more than you may think. This is where your lifestyle matters. So say you're taking calcium, but you're drinking soda. Soda has phosphoric acid in it, and phosphoric acid actively unbalances the calcium and the mineral balance in your body and your bones. And so it's working against each other. Soda also has high sugar content, which can increase inflammation. So all of that works against your bone health. Some other things, caffeine. Too much caffeine instead of eating in the morning. Low protein intake during the day. Frequent ultra-processed foods and snacks. Skipping meals regularly. These patterns do not support healthy metabolism, healthy metabolic health, or bone health. And here, let's talk about some things that actually support your bone health and what you can do. So, as we've talked about, protein intake is one. Your body needs protein to maintain your muscle. Women need a certain amount of protein. And one of the things I see very frequently is women not eating enough food, not eating enough protein, not eating protein throughout the day, because that has so many benefits. It'll keep your energy stable. It can help your sleep. It can help your weight. So when you have enough protein and you're helping your muscles, this can help protect your bone. So that's really important. So strength training, weight-bearing exercise. We're talking about weights, walking, anything that puts weight on your bone. It can be a treadmill, it can be the weights, it can be, walking your dog. There's so many things. It can be dancing, it can be yoga, but weight training is so important for your bones because your bones respond to the load. Your bones get stronger with the load of the weight. Your body needs to be challenged with weight because otherwise it's not going to maintain that density. Okay. Blood sugar stability is another key piece. Blood sugar stability is about keeping your insulin. Insulin hormone comes in to balance your blood sugar after you eat. And if you're all over the place, maybe too many sugary carbs or too many refined carbs, not enough protein, your blood sugar can be on the roller coaster. This can actually push inflammation and make you have, that causes inflammation basically. Again, long stretches without eating, not taking breaks to fuel your body. All of this can stress your body. All of this can cause inflammation. All of this inflammation can cause issues with your bone density. Okay, so why does this matter when you're in perimenopause? You don't feel anything, but this is why I often see a lot of women who are doing things right, but they're still not sure what to do in perimenopause. And maybe they're feeling less strong, maybe more tired, maybe slower recovery. So we want to know that by the time that shows up on a bone scan, if you're having low bone density, it's been developing for years. And this is why what you do in your 40s and your 50s matters so much. So you don't have to be perfect, but consistently eating, enough protein, healthy fats, low sugar, exercising regularly, like exercising weekly. Again, not being perfect, but it's the consistency that makes the difference. How many times are you exercising weekly? How many times are you exercising in a month? And just keep going, even if you have injury. And because I know all about that, it can be tough to get that bone loading if maybe you have an injury and you can't walk and you can't do weights. But there are some things you can do that even whatever you can do, even if it's very low weights or even if it's a little bit of walking, just keep going and be consistent. Okay, so if this is something you haven't thought about before, this is completely normal. If, most women, if you're in perimenopause, you're not told this until much later. Maybe you have other things going on. You're having the hormone changes and you're not thinking about your bone density. But understanding this can give you more options. So if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And you can also find my free guides. I have a couple of them. They're up in my bio at the top of this channel. And I have one that is called 5 Steps for Women to Boost Energy. That's all about balancing your blood sugar. And I have another one called the Stress-Free Blueprint. This is about managing your cortisol and how to lower stress. So check those out. Those guides will get you on my email mailing list, and I send out content, great content around women's health and hormones, and any way that I can serve you. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.